Welcome to the Flynn Brothers podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jimmy. Today's big idea, the best game show host of all time.
We discuss our favorite and television's most iconic game show hosts, breaking them into three categories: workhorses, sleazebags, and stars.
Later, we describe what makes a great game show host and try to determine the best game show host of all time.
Finally, Jim's got a surprise new game for me called Easiest Laugh. Ha 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 ha. I win.
No, you don't. It's all coming up. But first, here's the Solons.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Oh,
We've talked about this before on the podcast, but in addition to our parents, our lovely parents, we were raised by cable television. Isn't that right? That's the era we grew up in, wasn't it?
Yes, the dominance of the cable bundle.
Yes, internet's starting to come into the picture, but really, cable TV was our god many a Saturday morning and many a weeknight. But one thing I remember about cable TV, and we still have cable TV with YouTube TV, is game shows. They were such a foundational part of growing up, whether it was reruns of old school game shows, current revivals of game shows, or now we have these modern, very like celebrity-focused game shows. It really is kind of the epitome of mindless, consequenceless television that for some reason has endured throughout the entire history of television. Why do you think that is?
Because so often on TV, there's nothing on. And it's like, oh, there's a game show. I'll watch a game show. I'll feel, okay, there's 20 minutes until the show that I want to watch starts. I'll catch the end of Family Feud. I'll watch the last half of Jeopardy. So I think that's that's why it lives on cable TV, because it really feels weird to like select a game show out of all the streaming options that are available.
Right.
It's more, I feel like, designed to be you're flipping around, nothing's on. Oh, thank God. Oh,
you sort of just end up there.
Yeah,
like you say, you don't seek it out. It's essentially television for the sick, the sleepless, the unemployed, or all three, right? It's like you're an insomniac, like especially if you're just shotgunning game show after game show. I mean, you really got nothing going on. You're parked in front of the television.
It is incredible because you can never have seen any game show in your entire life, and your life will pretty much not be changed at all. But once you start watching a game show, it's almost unthinkable to stop watching it, to not see how it ends up turning out.
If you had to compare a game show or game shows in general to a type of food, let's say, what would you compare them to?
A game show, it's like a sandwich. You know, it's not your favorite item to eat, probably, but, you need to eat. You're hungry, you want to eat. Oh, there's this sandwich shop around the corner. They're making sandwiches. You go there a few times, say, this is a pretty good sandwich, that I've got here. It's like, it's got everything I need. Maybe it's not,
mustard, cheese.
Yeah, it's maybe not, super healthy for me, but it's not terrible for me. And
goes down easy.
Down easy. You don't have to think about it too much. It's dependable. It's the same thing every time, more or less. And that's what I think a game show is. And a game show host is like the guy making the sandwich for you. It's like, I don't want too much flash. I want you to deliver the product that I'm looking for.
We've always been fascinated by game show hosts. I think going back to being young kids. And I think what we always were amused by with game show hosts is the sleaziness that seems inherent to all game show hosts. There's this almost car salesman energy that a lot of them have. They have these flashy and or cheap suits.
Yeah.
They have, the big bright smile. They are very winsome and very complimentary and, can get along with all different types of people. Why do you think it is? Why do we enjoy the game show host archetype so much?
It's like the con artist almost archetype that Americans really love. It's like, this guy doesn't really care about these people. They don't really care about who wins or who loses. This is their job to care, to pretend to care. And they do a phenomenal job of it, the best ones.
Yeah.
And I think there's a familiarity. It's a sort of stock character that we've seen a lot throughout American culture.
There's all these different types of moves, where they swing their finger to the board to reveal the result. They kind of tap the cards on the desk. There's all these sort of, like you say, stock moves, signature moves. And to continue the analogy, of the game show host being the person who makes you the sandwich, when you go to a sandwich shop, you either have someone who's making you the sandwich who's total wallpaper, who just is there to make you the sandwich, no personality, no commentary, none of that. Or you have someone who's very personality heavy, making you the sandwich, lots of comments, lots of, hey, how are you, where you from, that sort of, crowd work energy. And that's kind of how game show hosts are. There's sort of the really flashy ones where it's like, the game show's fine. I'm really here for them. They are really the star of the show. And then there's others where it's like, hey, I'm a workman-like game show host, and I'm just in service of the game. Have you found that to be true? They're kind of in those camps.
Yes, totally so. And I think that these game show hosts, there's a charm about them. I think that's the main thing you have to have as a game show host, is there has to be this ineffable charm about you. And
absolutely.
I think that's what's really makes people gravitate towards them.
Absolutely. So as we do many a time on this podcast, we rolled up our sleeves and did some research and analyzed some of these great game show hosts throughout history and collected some data. And we're going to discuss sort of what we think makes a great game show host, what makes these specific game show hosts great. And at the end, we're going to try and decide who's the best game show host. That's funny on the Flynn Brothers podcast. Sometimes we say the word best. Sometimes we say the word greatest. Not really a difference between the two. It's just, best game show host of all time sounded a little better than greatest game show host of all time, didn't it?
It does. Yeah, one of the times where alliteration sort of fights you. It's not
yes, we discussed that with the Sunday night football song, waiting all day for a Sunday night versus waiting all week for a Sunday night.
It's cloying. It's cloying.
Go listen to our NFL episode for more of that great podcast content. But this first category of game show hosts we call the workhorses. And of course, we have to start with the ultimate game show host workhorse, Bob Barker. Bob Barker hosted The Price is Right for 35 years, from 1972 to 2007. I believe 2007 was the year the first iPhone came out. And then what was going on in 1972? Kind of tail end of like civil rights and stuff like that. Maybe sort of the Rolling Stones are beginning to fall off. Like
disco.
It's just like that is such a staggering amount of time.
From disco to the iPhone. I mean,
that's
it's one of the more like monumental periods in human history.
What would you, if you had to kind of give me the one sentence pitch for someone who's never heard of the game show The Price is Right, what would you say The Price is Right is?
You have to guess. It's a bunch of games built around guessing what the price of supermarket goods is.
It's so stupid, isn't it? Like, I always think about that. You always watch it when you're sick, right?
Yeah.
There is that like trope of like, oh, you're at home sick, you watch Bob Barker on The Price is Right. And it is something, it speaks so much of the time, the obsession with consumerism that Americans had, and sort of the new advent of all these, products and ready-made foods that were in the supermarket, like spray cheese and Ritz crackers, all these kind of post-World War II things. And it's sort of like a celebration of good old-fashioned American consumerism. But talk to me a little bit about Bob Barker. For those who never really watched Bob Barker, came around too late, or never really watched The Price is Right, what was Bob Barker like as a host?
Classy, very smooth, very effortless. He gave the show this veneer of somewhat like sophistication or high class, which it needs because it's about guessing what junk in the supermarket costs by people dressed up in ridiculous costumes.
And they're going crazy, right? When they get called come on down. They go absolutely nuts.
Yes.
They're freaking out, and it is such a contrast between the crazy Joe Schmo from Anywhere USA versus Bob Barker in his nice suit and long microphone.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's just this class to him that really raises the level of the show.
To speak to the ridiculousness of The Price is Right, you jotted down some of the names of the games they play on The Price is Right. Can you indulge me?
Yeah, we got Plinko,
Classic.
Cliffhangers, Bonkers, Flip Flop, Rat Race, and Swap Meet. And they're all just basically gimmicks, again, built around guessing how much something costs.
These all could be band names. Which one's your favorite of all those? Plinko, Swap Meet's not bad. That's not bad. That's pretty good. I like that. But yeah, Barker, in addition to kind of giving the show some classiness, he also would imbue it with the proper drama, the proper ceremony, which you do as a game show host. The other funny thing about Barker is you're dealing with, like I said, just these fools off the street. And he would sometimes demonstrate kind of like an impatience with them. If they were trying to steal the spotlight or they were sort of milking the moment too much. He had this almost cantankerous side to him as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd say most game show hosts sort of have a feeling like maybe a teacher as well, and you've called a kid up to the board, and it's like, all right, you have to play by the rules here. If you start hamming it up too much or you distract away from what we're doing here, then I'm not going to be pleased with you. And he had that sort of stern way about him occasionally, but also like he was just this icon. Like people would, I think more than any game show host, people just worshipped him.
Yes. Part of it too is the iconic long microphone that it started kind of in 70s game shows. We'll talk about Gene Rayburn later with Match Game. He had one, and other game shows had one. But we really associate the long microphone with Bob Barker. What was it? An advent of the time? I didn't do any research on this, but the long microphone. What is it about it? Is it just that it's different than the microphones we're talking into?
I think it looks more elegant. It's like having like a one of those cigarette holders, perhaps.
You're right.
That's kind of how it feels.
It's like writing with a quill versus like a plastic pen.
I think, too, there's something, maybe it also perhaps a regular microphone obscures your face too much.
Yes.
Whereas this small microphone, you can hold it down lower. You can offer it to the contestant without really getting up in their face.
You were reminding me that Barker was a big kind of like animal lover, animal advocate. What was he did like a big ad or something?
Spay and neuter your pets. He said it every single broadcast at the end. It was sort of his sign-off.
Insane thing to say.
Truly. It's like, I hope you enjoyed an hour of mindless television. Now make sure your cats and dogs never have reproduction again.
Cut your dog's balls off. I mean, that's what he's saying at the end at 11 a.m. When you're sick, you're hearing that. That's unbelievable. I will say, Barker is perhaps, and we'll just discuss best game show host, but he is probably the one that's the most fondly remembered. There is this sense that Barker, as you were homesick watching him on The Price is Right, or hungover or unemployed or whatever the case may be, he was kind of like grandpa coming over and hanging out with you and taking care of you, giving you a bowl of soup, giving you a cup of coffee. There was just this kind of, even as he was on the air, this nostalgia to him that really was very comforting, and perhaps that's why people, feel so warmly towards him looking back.
Yeah, timeless figure, and I think too, like how nice he was. He just emanated, even when he was prickly occasionally with a contestant. There was like just a feeling of this is a decent human being, and I think that was also what made his cameo in Happy Gilmore so wonderful and surprising. It's just like Bob Barker's beating the hell out of somebody. He's got a mean right cross. Like, it was just what a great deployment of his public persona and a subversion of it.
Well, if we're talking about Barker, we got to talk about his replacement, Drew Carey, who has hosted The Price is Right since Barker left in 2007. So Drew Carey is in his 18th year of hosting The Price is Right. How stunning is that?
It's incredible. You would have thought it was impossible shoes to fill.
Yeah. And it was seamless the way Carey stepped in. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. 18 years, long amount of time. Half as long as Bob Barker hosted The Price is Right. So he's still got a long way to go, doesn't he?
I think Carey doesn't quite have the same, cultural crossover just because television isn't as ubiquitous in our daily life. Like, I think kids stay home from school and they're like, oh, great, I get to watch Mr. Beast. Maybe Mr. Beast is the Bob Barker of this age.
Well, we go back, Carey's best work, he had the Drew Carey show. He's a great comic, but his best show is Whose Line Is It Anyway, which he hosted from 98 to 2007, which itself is sort of a send-up of game shows. It's sort of this improv-based game show that featured Colin Mockery, Ryan Stiles, and Wayne Brady, among other guests. And it was a show we grew up with. We absolutely loved. It's basically the main reason why most people our age got into improv comedy, wouldn't you say? Which I find so hilarious that anytime you see an improv show, it's long form.
Yes.
And like most people, it's like, oh, I thought I'd show up and we'd kind of do like scenes from a hat and like fun Whose Line. And you're always like a little let down. It's like every time I see an improv show, it's like there's some improv that's totally great. And we do sketch. I've done stand up. Like we do different types of comedy, and hats off to people who do improv. It's very, very difficult. But there is always this sense of dissatisfaction having grown up with Whose Line Is It Anyway? And these guys are so unbelievably talented that are on the show. And Drew Carey guides it like a maestro that anytime you go to an improv show, you're like, God, I was kind of hoping for Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they did like an hour-long one scene thing with callbacks, right?
Yeah.
There is kind of that oddness where even in improv schools, they don't teach like the Whose Line style. They don't teach the short games. It is so funny. It just was so of its time. And then any improv before or since just kind of doesn't do that style.
Yeah, I guess the argument is that it's like a commercial form of improv, that it's not like the proper art form of it.
Right.
But yeah, I do think you could mix it in and people would certainly be interested in it. But I think, the thing that made that show, and I think so many people want to try it, is just how great particularly Ryan and Colin were together.
Yeah.
I mean, just an like Laurel and Hardy type, comedy dream team of guys who were just lightning quick on their feet and played off each other so well. And then Wayne Brady is just sort of a one-man supernova.
You're watching Wayne Brady and you're like, this may be the most talented all-around man, triple threat guy who ever lived. And then Carey is such a great host because he's very snarky, he's very smarmy, he's making a joke of the points and everything.
Yeah.
And then he himself would step into some games and he was really wonderful. And Carey's looks very fascinating. He has the short crew cut and he has the thick dark-rimmed glasses. And that he went into the Marines, I think, right, when he was very young. And that was where he got the look. They give him the standard glasses and they gave him the haircut. He's just had that ever since. He's gone, I think, on Price is Right, the hair's gotten a little longer. He's gotten a little more kind of oddly. He's gone back to Barker's early years and almost looks like kind of 70s.
Kind of 70s,
yeah, Drew Carey.
Lost some weight.
Yeah, he lost some weight. But yeah, he parlays this, Drew Carey, in 2007. He basically went from Whose Line straight to Price is Right. And yeah, what do you think? I mean, I think Drew Carey's done a great job with Price is Right.
Totally. I think the experience from Whose Line gave him this gravitas, because I think there was always this sense on Whose Line, it's like Drew Carey's way bigger than anybody else on this show.
Yes,
he had a show named after him on network TV.
Huge star.
Back when that used to be a huge deal.
Huge
and
star.
I think there's still that way that he carries himself of like, you guys are kind of lucky I'm here. Like that is I'm
really
rich. I don't have to
rich,
be here. Like I'm doing this because I kind of like it. Don't make me regret being here, guys.
It is funny how family friendly he is in his career, because he was kind of a dirty comic. And when you hear sort of behind the scenes stories of Drew Carey, like he likes dirty jokes and dirty material and stuff. And it is so funny to imagine this like sliding doors moment with him where he kind of pursues that and chooses that as career. But the time he came up as a comic, you had to kind of go more of the clean route. And it's worked out really well for him, in terms of lucrativeness. He's made so much money, and then just broad appeal. Like, it's not like we're watching The Price is Right every day, but when we occasionally throw it on, like, he's just a great presence, and he's someone you want to let inside your living room via the television.
He has what you say, I think, is exactly right. He has the clean sense of humor, but you can tell that he would go edgier or darker there, that he has these thoughts going through his head, and that would be present on Whose Line is as well. And one of the things he would do, like, which is almost like a complete no-no, but would be hilarious the way that he would do it, was if he didn't think something was funny, he would buzz it really quickly. Like there was a standard you had to meet to be on Whose Line, and if you fell below his humor, which is a really solid sense of humor, then you were rapped on the knuckles.
He has that Barker-esque sense sense of impatience
Yes.
and almost disdain when the
Yeah.
material is not up to snuff.
It's like, I'm making the sandwich here. What do you want? What do you want? Tell me.
Know what you
Yeah.
want before you order it. All right, let's move on to our next workhorse. We have Pat Sajak. He was the host of Wheel of Fortune from 1981 to 2024. 43 years.
Oh, my God.
Can you believe that?
Checking into the office.
I mean, how many
43
days?
years
You
of
think-
security guards.
5
you're
days a
nodding to.
week. Yeah, janitors,
Drivers,
your fist bumping.
yeah.
I mean, 43 years. It's
That's
unbelievable.
Truly astonishing.
There is this thing that I find so fascinating. Before we get into Sajak, and we've talked about this before. We're bringing it now to light on the microphones. Jay Leno was like this, where Jay Leno did the Tonight Show forever. Then he had the Jay Leno Show. Then he got the Tonight Show again. And then I remember the last few years post-COVID, he was hosting the old Groucho Marx show, You Bet Your Life, every day of the week on like local LA television.
Yes.
And there's something true about Leno that I think is also true of Sajak, is some of these guys, the drug they are addicted to is being on television every night of the week.
Yep.
It is this fascinating, like, either need for attention, need for stardom, need for fame, need for notoriety. Maybe you only feel comfortable when the lights are hot and the camera's on and the audience is lathered up laughing at your shtick. Like, there is something so fascinating about these workhorse types that are on the air every day of the week, decade after decade after decade.
Yeah, it's the pampering. It's sitting in the chair. It's getting the makeup and the hair done.
The croissant.
The new cheap suit you get to wear. Yeah, crafty,
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
everything together for you for
yeah.
all your meals. I do think, you just fall into the rhythm of it, and you're like, who even am I if I'm not producing 30 minutes of content for the American viewing public?
I will say, Sajak, as time went on, he and Vanna White did the show together basically from the beginning. I think Vanna was with him basically the whole time and is still on. I think Ryan Seacrest has replaced Sajak in the last couple of years. I will say this, though, and it's never great to make fun of how someone looks, but I think when, you could make fun of things about me. I'm rotund. I have a scar on my forehead. There's things I could make fun of you about, a hairline, etc. But, well, it's kind of a cheap shot, huh?
Kind of a cheap shot. I didn't ask for this. You can do self-deprecating, but then now you're just insulting me.
But Pat Sajak, like, he got so much plastic surgery over the years, right? Like, as decade after decade, you're on television, you're pressured by producers. I'm sure you're pressured by so many people to get plastic surgery. By the end, he just, like, wasn't looking like himself. I mean, it was like he had a mask of his face over his face. And again, I don't want to be cruel, but I think there are certain allowances can be made when people willingly make these changes and augmentations to themselves. There was this very uncanny valley sense of watching the Wheel of Fortune the last decade or so, just because you're on TV so long. It's like you're allowed to age. You've been on TV 43 years, right? But there's just such this resistance to it.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, his head just got huge as a result, and
because you add more Botox, your head just gets bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because you do need to. There is this baseline level of presentableness that you need to have as a game show host, and I think just being on TV every day, seeing yourself on screen, you would just be hyper conscious of all of your imperfections.
We rewatch these video podcasts of us. My hair isn't always perfect. I have, a little pimple here or there. I could attack things about you. I'm going to restrain myself.
You already have. What are you talking about?
I already have. But
no,
you know
but
what I mean? It's
yeah.
I think you're right, though. Like, you just become very image conscious, and it leads you to make kind of crazy decisions about your image.
Well, I think part of it is because he isn't a comic or an icon in the same way that some of these other game show hosts are. I think he really is he's the wallpaper
He's
type
the
of
wallpaper
host that we were
host.
talking about.
Workmanlike, efficient. The star of Wheel of Fortune is the wheel.
And the wall.
And the wall.
That Vanna's tap. That whoever came up with that touch, that is one of the great TV presentation
And
light bulb moments of all time.
And you need Vanna. Like,
Yeah.
Vanna, she's had her own work done, but, she's stayed in great shape. She is great at hosting the show.
Here's the difference with Vanna. Vanna, you pretty much only ever see from about 20 feet away.
Versus Sajak, always
you
in a
get some
close-up.
close-ups.
Yeah, it's true.
And so
it's true.
Vanna basically looks the same. The
Right,
outline of
right.
Vanna is basically the same. Her hair still looks great. She
Right,
stayed in
right.
great shape. Like, when you see her up close, you're like, okay, she's gotten a little bit older. But yeah, with Sajak, it was just like,
there's a ton of makeup
Yeah.
as a game show host. That's a huge part of
there's
it.
an
too.
artificiality.
But
about
the star of Wheel of Fortune, as he does the tick 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 tick
Yes.
of the wheel and the ding of like the board, and it was
Yeah.
just incredible. And like, I mean, Sajak, he was essentially like a tour guide for people coming to Hollywood, right? You would
Right.
come to Los Angeles, have your big Los Angeles trip, and he would hopefully you'd win some vacations to other places as well, right? But he wasn't like a very memorable host in terms of like big memorable moments or big laugh lines. He just put his head down, clocked in every day,
Yeah.
fist bumped the security guard, and just went to work.
effortless. He really just you got the sense of him, particularly well, by the time we were watching, he'd probably been doing the show like 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
That he could just do it in his sleep.
Yes,
like it's just no problem for him.
Wheel of Fortune is have a beer and a TV dinner after work television.
Yeah,
It is just plop down with the TV tray and shut the brain off and just let Sajak and Vanna White and the sound effects take you away.
The one good thing that he was really good at is the puzzled, what word
Yeah.
fits there? I'd say that was his superpower.
Built the
as a
suspense.
host,
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last workhorse. We have Alex Trebek. He was the host of Jeopardy from 1984 to 2020 when he passed away. Host for 36 years. That is really incredible. None of these other guys hosted until they died.
Yeah.
It's like he was almost the pope of game shows.
Yes, he rivals Barker in terms of how much people loved him. And, lots of nerds love Jeopardy,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody loves celebrity figures more than nerds. Nobody obsesses more over them, which is funny because Trebek always gave off, even though he was smart, that he was cool.
Yes.
That he even though he knows all of this stuff, it wasn't his whole life.
No,
like
no.
you could see him sort of like, kicking back in a sleazy lounge, and he had that mustache for all those years, which kind of gave him this like, magnetism, a little bit of danger to him.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he's like basically a cool high school teacher, right? And it's like the nerds after school in the AV club come hang in his classroom, and he's kind of like making fun of their hobbies, which the nerds on Jeopardy loved that. When there'd
Loved
be
it.
like after the first ad break, and it's like, "What do you do for a living?" It's like, "Oh, I'm a computer." Blah blah blah.
Meet a lot of girls that way.
Yeah, like he's
stuff
just like
that,
roasting them, which is so funny. You mentioned the mustache and kind of this magnetism he has. It is so funny when I look back on those old SNL sketches where Will Ferrell plays him, and Will Ferrell just plays him very straight, like basically just the ultimate straight man. There's really no impression involved. There's really no connection to the actual Alex Trebek. It is so funny. Like, where did that impression come from? Or was it just you just kind of copy the look and then you take the character where you want to take him?
I think it was purely an excuse for other celebrity impressions,
I
because
think
that's who
so,
else
yes.
is on that
'Cause you-
sketch.
You totally do not associate the actual Alex Trebek with the Will Ferrell Alex Trebek.
No. I mean, yeah, because Trebek, too, I felt like could hold his own. Like, even on the Celebrity Jeopardies, occasionally it's like, Trebek's more well-known than this Joker. Like,
right.
he was a big star. So I think it just fed the comedy of the sketch more than, Taylor following what reality was.
Compared to Price is Right, compared to Wheel of Fortune, when you go on Jeopardy, you're very serious, you're very restrained, and Jeopardy itself is very pedantic. You have to answer in the form of a question. It's very serious. You can really feel the nerves. And like you said, Trebek just gave it this energy of coolness, and then he had just a great dry sense of humor. Like whether it was the contestants not being able to answer a question and him kind of correcting them or correcting a wrong answer, he just had this. Like you said, he almost, in any game show host, you always have the status above the contestants.
Yes.
Of course, it's your house, right?
Right.
You're in charge of the game show. It's your set. You're the host. You got the long or medium-sized microphone. And I feel of all of them, though, he rose the highest above the contestants, even though these contestants were the most intellectual.
Yeah, and I think you need that because the contestants are probably the highest caliber of person. Typically, a game show, they're just taking whoever. If you're like wacky and you can get eyes and we can easily sort of define you by one look, you're on. You're in the game show.
Yes.
But for Jeopardy, you got to take these like pre-tests, and you have to know that you can't buzz in before the question is finished reading, and all of these different kind of high level things. It's a highly skilled sort of environment.
It's like poker.
Yeah. So if you didn't have somebody with sort of chops and gravitas, these nerds who are coming on the show, they might overwhelm them. Like,
and you had to be so prepared as host of Jeopardy. You can't just like show up hungover and be like, yeah, I can host today. I'll be fine. Like, you had to be super on the ball. There's a standard that has to be maintained. I would say it is the most enriching of all game shows. Like, if you watch any game show, that's probably the one that's going to benefit you intellectually the most, would you say? Probably more so, at least, than The Price is Right.
I certainly feel the most smartest when I get a question right on Jeopardy as opposed to any other game. And I think for whatever reason in my mind, him and like Captain Kirk of Star Trek are sort of occupy the same like place in my mind. And I think it's because Jeopardy always felt like it was from a different like version of our reality.
It's futuristic seeming. The set and everything.
Totally. And it's like he's at the command of the Starship Enterprise, the Starship Jeopardy, and he's got all the answers. Whatever, difficult questions that may arise, Trebek knows.
Star Trek, Alex Trebek. There's kind of some overlap. Maybe your brain just kind of got it scrambled. His replacement, though, I think has been wonderful. For those who don't know, Alex Trebek was replaced after he passed away by Ken Jennings. He's the current host of Jeopardy, and he's really the only successor that made any sense. For those who don't know, Ken Jennings is the winningest contestant on Jeopardy ever. He won 74 games in a row for a total of $2.52 million. Would you have expected that number to be higher or lower? Because I remember watching his run, 20 years ago or whenever it was, and he was on a long damn time. And he would bet big and he would win a lot. And did you think it was more than $2.5 million?
I did, but then you realize that you're kind of winning it tens of thousands of dollars at a time, maybe like $30,000 to $40,000, which also just shows you how much $1 million is.
Oh, it's stunning. Yes, it's stunning.
Anyway, so I think Jennings, though, there's nobody like Trebek. Like, I think that was the most interesting thing about the replacement hunt for him was that nobody kind of combined his unique blend of knowledgeableness and coolness and worldliness and effortlessness. Like, there was just this unique cocktail that was his personality that nobody else could bring to the table. So it's like, all right, we have to go a different direction. And Jennings just makes the most sense because he's the master of that game. And that was the closest thing that Trebek was to. He was the master, the commander of the game.
Jennings is just the ultimate nerd. It's essentially like if the cool high school teacher retired and then his greatest, nerdiest student replaced him.
Yes.
Where it's like, well, he's not as cool as the old high school teacher, but he does know the material and he is a very good teacher. And that's precisely what Jennings is. He hasn't replaced Alex Trebek, but he's done a good job filling the shoes.
And he also has this reverence for Trebek that I think is also good, that allows him to, like, take his place without it feeling awkward or wrong.
Jennings, too, insanely witty, insanely funny, knows everything, and is just really great with a sharp comeback. Jennings, too, when he was a contestant, they had him battle like a supercomputer. He's won like the Jeopardy greatest of all time tournament.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, in the hot dog world, there's Joey Chestnut. Ken Jennings is sort of the Joey Chestnut of Jeopardy, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, of trivia in general. I mean, the Game Show Network, which is a network on cable television solely devoted to game shows, which, talk about making the airplane out of the black box. But he was in a few game shows that they had. And he beat the other like Jeopardy masters, like
the greatest of all time tournament. That was James Holzhauer and Brad Rutter, I think.
Right, because there was like, the Holzhauer guy was like the master of just playing odds and math and things like that. And it was like watching like Jordan beat Steph Curry or something like that. It's like, I know you can cheat the math, or you can
shoot all
manipulate
the threes,
game.
shoot all the threes you want. on.
But
When
there's no-
you know, one
there's-
possession left, I'm gonna sink it. You know?
there's no substitute for excellence, and
No.
just the preparedness of Jennings, and the same thing. The feeling that you get from Jennings is the same feeling that Trebek gave you, which is you're in good hands.
All right, that was the workhorses. When we come back, we're moving on to the sleazebags. All right, the sleazebags. Let's start with perhaps the sleaziest. Certainly the sleaziest name, Chuck Woolery.
Oh, yeah.
Chuck Woolery, I kind of think of him as the journeyman game show host, a journeyman in sports, been traded to a lot of teams, played all around the league, but he's kind of the journeyman game show host. Fun fact, he was the original host of Wheel of Fortune. He hosted from 1975 to 1981 when Wheel of Fortune was a daytime show, and he was replaced by the aforementioned Pat Sajak after a contract dispute.
What a one weird alternate reality that would be if Chuck Woolery was on network television for 40 plus years.
I think we'll get into some reasons why that could not have been the case. He also hosted Love Connection, which perfect as sleazy charm, matching up random couples. That was excellent. That was about a decade. He hosted Scrabble. I think that was in the 90s. And then our favorite show in the early 2000s, Lingo,
Yes.
which is Wordle.
Yeah.
It's just Wordle.
Yeah.
I was remembering that from when we were kids, and I watched a couple clips, and I was like, oh my God, it's literally Wordle. They have the first letter they sometimes give you, and then they have like the letters that you have but are in the wrong spot or highlighted, and you got to move them around. I was just like, oh my God, this is Wordle. No wonder I love Wordle. I loved Lingo.
It's true. Lingo to me is like the definitive early 2000s. I feel like, was that one on Game
That
Show
was Game
Network?
Show Network,
I think
yeah,
that was
for
one of its
sure.
first hits. And the thing that I also remember about Lingo was that there is a very beautiful woman, blonde woman, who is a sidekick. I believe she was like British
Yes,
too.
yes.
And so there was just this like give and take, this sort of weird dynamic between
Charged
the two.
energy, yes,
yes, where
for
it's like
sure.
she has to keep her job, wants to keep her job, has the easiest job in the world. Literally, all
Right.
she does is like, and you're starting with an S. Like that's her
Right,
job.
right.
And Chuck's like making, sleazy comments, and
Yeah,
and
we
she's
give her
like,
the
all right,
eyes.
Chuck, and
Yeah.
he's gonna try. He's gonna try.
That's Chuck Woolery. He you can look up a photo of him as you're listening to this. Hopefully, if you're not in a car doing it, but if you're not in a car, please do. A very tan.
Tan is the crust of bread.
rye bread.
Yeah.
Very like dashing, good looks.
Yes.
In a kind of a sleazy way. It's not like Pretty Boy. It's very like old school
Yes.
machismo.
John
sort of.
Wayne,
Yes,
Elvis,
yes, 50s, good
Yes.
looking, and of course, very very beautiful feathered hair, nice and
Yes.
soft, pillowy, and,
Right.
and done up just right.
Probably held in place rigidly with a whole can of hairspray.
He's always very flirtatious. Not only with his sidekick on Lingo, but with the female contestants, he was always very complimentary, always very flirtatious. All these guys, these sleazebags, which we're kind of referring to winkingly. Sure they were all decent guys, for the most part. But I don't know him personally. But yeah, they were always very flirtatious, and it always, when the game show host is flirtatious with the female contestants, it gives the show this element of risk.
Yes.
Not that like anything bad is going to happen, but just like, oh, or like they gonna kiss? Is he gonna kiss her hand? It just adds this.
What's she gonna say back to this?
It's this weird charged energy. It's a little uncomfortable. It's a
Right.
little titillating. It
Yeah.
just is very interesting in terms of an element you have with what is always a family-friendly show,
Yes,
right?
which makes it too. You have to like toe this line. You can't be too lewd.
Right.
Obviously, this is rated PG. It's going out to
Right,
everybody. You have to find these very subtle ways of getting it across. But
Right.
yeah, Chuck Woolery himself, just one of the more like magnetic personalities.
Yes,
Like
yes.
just you kind of couldn't take your eyes
Yeah.
off of him.
Yes.
Sort of. I mean, I'm sure he would love this comparison. He has a Trump feel to
Yes,
him.
yeah, for sure.
With the
No, he-
hair, with the tan.
Yes, it's and to the point you're gesturing at, Chuck Woolery, his whole life was a very outspoken Republican. He was a gun rights activist. He did a lot of conservative radio his last few years of his life. I looked up, he had a podcast during the last few years called Blunt Force Truth.
Boy.
And similar to blunt force trauma, hearing it will give you a concussion. But yeah,
There's something just so right wing about replacing a word trauma with truth, isn't there?
There is. Yeah, especially Chuck Woolery, right wingedness. He was married 5 times, which again just sort of feeds this lore of who he was, right? This kind of old school. You mentioned John Wade, this like right wing Americana, tan, feathered hair, married 5 times. He is, you mentioned this alternate reality with Pat Sajak. He's kind of this like dark, shadowy alternate reality version of Pat Sajak, right?
Shadow
Where it's-
Sajak.
It's like this. There's the face work. There's
Yeah.
the hair. There's the makeup.
Right.
There's more controversy. But this thing about Woolery, man, like we mentioned him because he's iconic. He's one of the greats. Like, say what you will about his life off screen, a lot of which I don't agree with. Like, on television, hosting a game show, doing what he does, the gestures,
Right.
the patter, the ease. He just knew how to do it. Like, we're evaluating people as game show hosts.
Yeah.
And in terms of a game show host, Chuck Woolery was a great one.
You got to separate the art from the
The
artist.
game from the blunt force truth. Yeah, absolutely.
He's sort of like, like maybe one of your friends' dads who you disagree with on
Yeah.
a lot of things, but it's like, hey, man, whenever we talk, I'm laughing a lot, and
Yeah.
I have a good time with
Every
this
time
guy.
I go, he barbecues a steak, and his younger girlfriend's there. And
Right.
it's kind of weird, but it's I don't mind him.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Next sleazebag, we have someone we've mentioned before on the podcast, Richard Dawson, aka the Kissin' Bandit. He hosted Family Feud from 1976 to 1985. He was called the Kissin' Bandit. Again, a story I've told before on the podcast. Very out of context, but now I believe it requires
in
a
context.
requires a reprisal. They called him the Kissin' Bandit because he was known for kissing the female contestants. Would Richard Dawson ever discriminate as to which female contestant he would kiss?
He would not. He'd kiss them all, so long as they were over 18.
Yes,
certainly.
of course. But it was literally any age, any race, any
Yes.
looks. He just loved the ladies. And there is something where, most women I think would find that behavior kind of creepy. But then I think some people look at it and it's just like, well, it's like he kind of didn't discriminate. And it's like, you could be bigger, you could be smaller, you could be older, whatever. Like he didn't care. Like he just really loved women. And there is something a little twisted, but there's also something kind of sweet about it. Here's the story I told before. Richard Dawson, known for kissing all these contestants, it stirred up quite a controversy. It was really the main reason why people tuned into Family Feud. Is again, Family Feud's a solid, good game, but a lot of it was you go to see the live wire act that is, a seemingly boozed up, red-faced Dawson with these female contestants. But here's the story: there were television executives who had repeatedly tried to get Richard Dawson to stop kissing the female contestants. They thought it was just not appropriate for family television.
To be a fly on the wall in those meetings.
What am I doing wrong? He's British, so there was always a little lilt of British
Yeah.
accent, although he buried it quite a bit. But anyway, Dawson was receiving criticism for this. He would hold the women's hands as well, and he would kind of caress them and touch them. And so Dawson told the executives, okay, why don't we have television viewers write in and they can vote on whether they like the kissing or they don't like the kissing. And the wide majority of the roughly 200,000 responses favored the kissing. So Dawson was allowed to continue touching and caressing. You wonder if that same vote was put out today, if the results would be the same.
You do.
After the results came in, Dawson was allowed to keep kissing. And then on the finale in 1985, Richard Dawson kind of revealed why he had done the kissing all these years. And he explained that he kissed female contestants for love and luck something his mother did to Dawson when he was a child. So there's this very like sweet, gentle note to it all, right? And then there is, of course, you know, you could discuss the power dynamic, a mother doing it to a child versus a man doing it to a young woman, you know, whatever. We could discuss that. But the sentiment is there. And I think it's a lot more innocent and you know, reverent than people would, you know, that even guys like us looking back on it, watching old Family Feuds, kind of laughing at it. It's a lot more respectful and reverent than we would think. Right?
I think too that there's just like less of a like, it's not necessarily, and I know this is a weird way to say it, it's not really sexual in a way. Like it isn't like he's trying, like there's nothing gonna happen after the kiss, not, right? Yeah. And so I think we've just, in a way that as you know, our society has more and more images of like luridness that are within popular culture. There's been this like countervailing, almost like prudishness or Puritan nature of people in day-to-day life, because you don't want to have what you're doing as just either a term of infection or affection or familiarity being misinterpreted as like wanting something more than that.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting distinction you bring up between what we see in the media versus what happens interpersonally.
Yeah.
You said with Dawson, the kisses would never lead to anything. Actually, he met his second wife. She was a contestant on Family Feud, so I guess all those kisses finally worked out.
Well, you know, it's a test. It's a litmus test.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Dawson, known for Family Feud, he was also a longtime panelist on the show Match Game. Which, what do you think? Should we talk about Match Game?
I love Match Game.
Let's talk about Match Game. The third sleazebag. We have the host of Match Game, Gene Rayburn. He hosted the show from 1962 to 1969 on NBC, and again from 1973 to 1982 on CBS and in syndication. So again, about 20 years. Match Game is, well, how would you describe Match Game?
Loose.
Loose. It's basically an absurd fill-in-the-blank game.
Yes.
It is entirely subjective. You essentially have a panel of 6 people who help the contestants. There's 2 contestants. They're given kind of a prompt and a fill-in-the-blank. They have to decide the word to fill in the blank, and then they have to match with one of the 6 panelists.
And the panelists are all minor celebrities.
Yeah, so Richard Dawson was one of them.
Yes.
Betty White, right, who got big later in life with Golden Girls and her later career. She was sort of known on like the game show circuit in the 60s, 70s, 80s, stuff like that. And
it's a home for people who are funny off the cuff. Kind of. You know, to go back to the improv we were sort of talking about, but this isn't like a game or anything like that. It's just like, are you quick with a comeback? But more importantly, are you ready just to like say something?
Yes.
Like you have to just say something. It doesn't need to be funny all the time, but if you're winsome, you're having a good time. Usually, I think on Match Game, they would look the other way if a contestant maybe had a little alcoholic beverage with them.
Oh, for sure.
Like it was almost encouraged.
Yes. There was this, I think the word you used, loose, was absolutely perfect. And we talk about how there's kind of these naughty nuances to these family-friendly game shows. And Match Game certainly was the naughtiest. They even had a Match Game PM version, which was kind of the more like late-night version of Match Game. And they would have these prompts that were so deliberate in terms of leading you to a filthy answer for the fill-in-the-blank. Like they would have things where it's like, you know, Dirty Daniel is so dirty, and the audience would be like, how dirty is he? And Gene Rayburn would say, on a first date, he tells the woman to touch his blank. And it's like, okay, obviously you're trying to guide me toward a filthy answer here. So they would deliberately do that, and then, you know, the panelists would sometimes be like, touch my cheek. Or, you know, they'd go away from the dirty suggestion. But, you know, Gene Rayburn was interesting because he himself kind of embodied this sleaziness that the game show had. Gene Rayburn, though, almost like I love Match Game. You and I love watching Match Game, the old Match Game. My fiance will not watch the old Match Game with me just because she finds Gene Rayburn so sleazy, even borderline creepy. Like he's got a huge set of teeth, which he always does this thing. People on the video will see me do it, where he's smiling. Licks across his top row of teeth, which I don't know if he had like veneers and was trying to keep them lubricated.
He certainly had veneers.
Or he
maybe
had
the first
teeth.
pair ever.
So I don't know if it's like a Clark Gable, gotta keep them lubricated type thing. He also would talk really, really close to contestants. And the thing about Match Game is, like you said, there's the booze, people are smoking, there's the shag carpet. It's the 70s, people aren't brushing and flossing as regularly as they should. You can almost smell the set. You can smell the booze and the smoke and the halitosis and the velour suits, and just like you can just like feel how warm it is in there. And there is like this almost unease you feel with the show, but then there's also this like nostalgia and comfort you feel as well, isn't there?
Totally. I think Rayburn, in contrast to Woolery and who did we just talk about? Dawson. The Woolery and Dawson have a little bit of like charisma to them that you get like
a little
attractiveness.
Sexiness. They do have a little sexiness.
Exactly.
Yes.
Rayburn does not. Like
No.
no chance. He's like the guy that you would see telling a dirty joke, and you'd see him laughing in his sleeve or something, and you'd be like, I hope he's not talking about me.
Right,
that's the
right.
feeling that he gives off. And at the same time, though, it's not really his fault that he looks the way that he does. He's just kind of, he's a little overly familiar. But at the same time, he's really good in the role of the match game host. Like, I think he's funny.
Yes.
He has the right sort of sensibility with the panelists. You know, he makes it so that one of the nice things about match game, and you don't get this often with the celebrity type games, is that there's this evenness. Like, he is who makes the contestant equal with Betty White, equal with Richard Dawson.
Right.
He's the liaison.
The thing I love about Gene Rayburn is he leans into kind of the shakiness of match game. There's, when answers are all over the place, or there's a flubbed line, or he gets out of order on asking whose turn is it. He kind of talks to the production crew. There's kind of almost this, hey, can you believe how crappy this show is energy. He's doing voices. He's making fun of the show. And I think that's a really great part of being a game show host, is it's just like, hey, it's pretty clear we're on a cheap set. It's pretty clear, these we're trying to make it look like futuristic and analog and technologically savvy, but things go wrong, things break, and just kind of leaning into that live element of, hey, it can go wrong. Like, you'll see that a lot on Saturday Night Live when there's a flubbed line or whatever.
Right.
It really adds just a sense of reality. It makes it fun for the audience who's there live. It makes it fun for the contestants and the people at home watching on TV. And that is the one thing I think Gene Rayburn did very well. And, and any great game show host, you got to have that ease.
Yes.
You got to have that comfortability. There's the
Totally.
old story about Sean Connery when he was cast as James Bond. He spent 24/7 in a suit. He slept in a suit. He wanted to get comfortable in the suit. And that's what all these great game show hosts are like. They're comfortable in the suit.
Oh, great way of putting it. And I think, too, it makes you as the audience feel at ease.
Yes.
There's no like, oh, God, is it going to go wrong? And I think what's interesting about Match Game is it's such a solid premise for a game, and it's just like rock solid television. Like, put that on TV.
Yes.
But you've had Alec Baldwin and Martin Short, who are both, like top tier performers, and both of them have had the flop sweat.
Yeah, they both.
Gene Rayburn. I mean, both of them sort of
both figured it out, and both are really solid hosts of Match Game. But neither of them, for as great as they are, for as brilliant as they are, purely in terms of hosting a game show, were not as good as Gene Rayburn.
It's a very specific set of skills.
Very specific set of skills. All right, quick break, and then we'll get to our last category. We've done the workhorses, we've done the sleazebags, and now our last category, the stars. And we start with Regis Philbin. He hosted Who Wants to Be a Millionaire from 1999 to 2002. All these other guys we're talking about, decades-long tenures. Regis Philbin, 3 years. So why do we include him? Because Regis Philbin was a star. Those eyes, huge, brown, twinkling. That voice, friendly, yet no bullshit, with a tinge of New York. The suits, monochrome, very demure, very mindful. And above all, the drama he imbued into that wonderful game show. Regis made Who Wants to Be a Millionaire absolute must-see TV, didn't he?
Blockbuster. Felt like Blockbuster. It's like the Hunger Games was like the feel of it. I can't believe he only hosted it for 3 years.
He came back, I think, around 2009. They revived it. Currently, it's hosted by Jimmy Kimmel, who, he's a mercenary. I don't think he cares too much about the show. He does an effective job, and he's very clever and funny. But Regis, his first season hosting Millionaire, it was the #1 primetime show on television in the United States of America.
Well, it is a great title
Yes.
for a game
Yes.
show. I think it's probably the best.
To answer the question,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, everybody.
Everyone
Yeah,
does, right?
And I think he was just so the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, like all of the music
And his
the
voice,
lights.
man, his voice. Like I
Yes.
can still hear the voice of Regis Philbin.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
terrible impression, but
Yeah.
that is he just had a great voice. That
Right.
that face of his was so gentle. I mentioned the eyes. He elevates game shows from what is essentially historically daytime filler for housewives to must-see primetime television. And I think so much of that is because of Regis Philbin. This whole movement nowadays with these game show hosts being made, game shows being made, a lot of it came out of COVID and just like, hey, what's something easy to film on a back lot? We already got the set and we can have people 6 feet apart and, you know, stars will sign up for it. And, you know, I do... There's something that's taken away nowadays because so many game shows like Millionaire, like Jeopardy, so many of them are celebrity focused. And it's like, oh, I can't wait till the celebrity version of this game show comes on. It's like, it kind of betrays what game shows are about. Game shows are about bringing on Sally somewhere and Joe Schmo from Anytown, USA, and they get their night in the sun and you know, get to feel like a star and maybe win some cash and go on their honeymoon or build that ADU or whatever their big dream is and
Go on vacation,
Go on
yeah.
vacation. Like something is lost when it's celebrities playing for charity. It is great that they're raising money for charity, but then there's also this notion of, oh, you got the first question wrong. Well, we're going to give you the $10,000 anyway for the Boys and Girls Club. Clap, clap, clap. And that's very well and good. I think it's good we're giving money to charity, but a lot of it's just so the network looks good. And it completely robs the show of the actual stakes, the make or break decisions, right? And yeah, I don't know. I think with Regis, with Millionaire, with everyday contestants, it was so hard to get better human drama on a game show than that.
He would pause for the perfect amount of time.
Yes.
After, is that your final answer?
His iconic line, is that your
Yes.
final answer?
Right. And there's so much at stake, too, because there's like these benchmarks that you hit in
Yes.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So once you're above this, you can't fall, but only so far.
Right.
But then you're like, you know, you're at like $250,000. And if you get this question wrong, you're all the way back down to like 32.
64, I think.
64,
and it's
yeah.
also like, if you're going for 500,000, you could walk away with 250. But you could also walk away with 500,000 if you
Yeah.
get it right, and you still have a lifeline. You could go for $1 million. Like there were just these. It just was a perfect metaphor for life. In life, you have choices you have to make,
Yeah.
and those choices have consequences. Do you take the money and run, or do you bet it all? It was gambling. It was drama. It just was such a great game show, particularly when it was hosted by Regis Philbin.
Totally. And particularly, I think with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, it's the most fun to sort of play at home.
Yes.
Like
yes,
there's
for
this
sure.
like, ooh, would I go for it? Oh man, if I had gone for it, I did not know this answer. And then if the person knows it, you're like, wow, this is a really
Yes,
impressive
yes,
person. And it's
that's
like
true.
this high wire act that they're
Yeah.
climbing. You're on the wire and the wire keeps getting raised higher and higher and higher. It's like, boy, that's a long way to fall, is basically what you're thinking as you're watching these people answer trivia.
All right, we have one more star. Steve Harvey. He's been the host of Family Feud since 2010. 15 years. Can you believe it's been 15 years? Feels about right, though, doesn't
Feels
it?
about right. Feels like he just started hosting it yesterday. It's so fresh. And also feels like he's hosted it his entire life. He's so good at it.
It was Family Feud was originally hosted by Dawson. Then there was Richard Karn from Home Improvement. There was John O'Hurley, who was on Seinfeld. And then Steve Harvey, when he took over in 2010, the show was on the verge of cancellation, and he immediately rose ratings by 40%, and it's been straight to the moon since. You know, the thing about Steve Harvey that I find so interesting is his face. You know, we talked about Regis and his star quality, which Steve Harvey has as well. But I just could look at Steve Harvey's face till the end of time. There are so many parts about his face that are so charismatic. His teeth, They are huge. They are white. They make you happy. His smile is an iconic smile. If you had a photo of just his teeth and lips and put it like 100 identical smiles, you would pick his out 100 times out of 100. His mustache, it's big, it's bushy, it never moves, right? it looks like it is like it's almost like an element on the periodic table, right? His mustache is unlike any other mustache on earth.
There is one historical parallel. It is Groucho Marx's mustache.
Right,
it is the exact immovable like strip of black. Yeah.
He has the shiny, beautiful bald head. He has great shiny and well moisturized skin, and then his eyes, so expressive. Anytime a guest has an inappropriate or inane answer, he does the beautiful, just dead-eyed turn to the audience with his jaw hanging slack. It's almost like Carson in the old days when he would host the Tonight Show, where he would kind of look at the audience after Rickles or some guest would say something. And that is like any iconic Steve Harvey moment is usually like, a contestant buzzes in, beep, beep, and her answer's like, boobies. And Steve Harvey just slowly turning to the audience after an inappropriate answer or whatever. And man, it's just like, in terms of, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Regis elevates it. It's still a great game show, but it's great with Regis as well. Family Feud's fine, but you really are watching for Steve Harvey. When you watch Family Feud, you're like, I want to watch Steve Harvey.
That's true, but at the same time, Steve Harvey is a difficult guy to kind of place. He's not really right for movies. He's not really right for a TV show.
Right.
Him and Family Feud are just this perfect hand glove. Because what you want to do with Steve Harvey is just turn him loose. Just riff on whatever you want, dude. Like, whatever anybody says, you never think with Steve Harvey, oh, he left an opportunity for a joke on the table. That is never what happens.
His other great work is in Spike Lee's comedy documentary, The Original Kings of Comedy, where he's with D.L. Hewley, Bernie Mac, and Cedric the Entertainer. And Steve Harvey's the host. He's the MC. And it kind of prepares him perfectly for Family Feud, right? Because he's the host. He's about, good times. Even in his stand-up act, like, he would dance and it would be a party and it would be just like it is on Family Feud. And there's this great moment we love from that film where the guys are hanging in the hotel room at the end of the movie playing cards, and I think the credits are rolling. Steve Harvey, they all got cigars, and Steve Harvey's asking the boys, he's like, do I bring you guys out or do I bring you out? And it's so true. Like, he is so gifted as an MC. He's so gifted as a host. He knows how to bring energy. He knows how to connect with people. It's why he's got a daytime show. It's why he does Judge Steve Harvey. It's why he's got all these endorsements, and he's almost been elevated to this rock star status and legendary status. And it all basically stems from the fact that he agreed to host Family Feud.
Yeah, I mean, he also brings this wisdom, you would say. There is this particular, certainly Christian type of wisdom that Steve Harvey has, which also gives you this sense that Family Feud, all right, we'll have our fun, but Steve is going to keep it from veering too far off the rails. You're not going to get anything that's crass or lewd. We'll wink at stuff that's
It'll
a little
toe the
off.
line.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's always going to bring it back, and you kind of get your cake and you get to eat it too. You get the I know that's so wrong, right? Is kind of the feel that Steve Harvey brings to it. And then he also, again, like Regis, really, again, exudes this I like this guy, and makes the contestants feel very at ease. A different style certainly than Dawson had on the show, but also makes them feel warm. Really gives lots of compliments. Is a very generous host, I would say, as well. In addition to that, lets moments land, lets moments build, the suspense. He really does, as silly as Family Feud is as a show, he gives it this extra weight and this extra gravity that it needs because of his star power.
All the things I think Steve Harvey does well with Family Feud, I jotted these down because they combine all the great parts of any game show. It's very broad. Anyone can watch it. The show can be on daytime or primetime. There are incredible, great stakes to the show. And part of that is usually because on Family Feud, it's usually a white family versus a black family. There's a ton of like race baiting that goes on with Family Feud.
It's like, who's got the upper hand? The whites or the blacks?
It just adds this like, and it's not like it's like racist or like these people hate each other. It just adds a little extra zhuzh to the show.
They're wearing jerseys.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Steve Harvey, he'll flirt with the women, but it's in this much more reverent, much more hands-off way where he's more, admiring of the women versus kind of forthright and grabbing them.
He's like a reverend.
Yes,
would be the way that I would describe him.
Exactly. And he gets along really well with the fellas. He's a man's man, but he wrote that book, Think Like a Man, so he's kind of in touch with his feminine side and his feminine intuition. Everybody loves Steve Harvey. Everybody who goes on the show loves Steve Harvey. Everybody in the crowd loves Steve Harvey. Everybody watching at home loves Steve Harvey, which, broad appeal, being well liked by everyone, so key to being a game show host. And then the last thing is he makes fun of Family Feud, but he also embraces it. He's also a company man that's like, this is the show that butters my bread, and I can make fun of it sometimes, and I can make fun of it, the contestants and just the show as a whole, and this is what I do for a living, but he just makes it so fun. And as to kind of summarize all this and to kind of look back now, as we talk about this, as we went through the research on this, I was pretty resolute in the fact that I believe Steve Harvey is the greatest game show host of all time. And maybe it's recency bias. Maybe it's because he's currently the top dog and he does it so well. But there is just a star quality to him. Perhaps he's learned so much from the game show hosts that have come before. Perhaps game shows themselves have evolved in such a way that he's kind of just right at the sweet spot and right at the prime of game shows. But how do you feel? Like, we've talked about, a handful of these guys, and to me, I just feel like Steve Harvey is head and shoulders above. He just is everything you want a game show host to be.
Yeah, just cranked up to an even higher level. He hits the perfect tone constantly. You tune in to the game show for him, and yet he is also part of the wallpaper of the show. He can hang back. He can step forward. He can be whatever the show needs him to be. And I'd agree with you. I mean, there are some other hosts in here that have just none of them are as funny. Steve Harvey is by far the funniest, by far the most entertaining of any of them.
Most charismatic to look at, too. Like, all these guys are handsome, charming in their own way. When Steve Harvey is on my television, and maybe it's because the colors are so saturated on Family Feud, everything's so bright, and he wears the big suits, right? He just, I cannot take my eyes off of him. I will finish the episode. There is just something so mesmerizing about Steve Harvey. We'll talk about celebrities' silhouettes and stuff like that, right? He has an incredible silhouette. I mean, if I'm talking about, other people, the sleazebags that, we kind of just want to talk about. I think if you're talking about the pantheon, a Mount Rushmore of game show hosts, I think it's Harvey. I think it's Barker. I think it's Trebek. And then whoever you want for the fourth one, right? Most people would probably put Sajak. But I think Harvey's number one. And then if you're doing a Flynn Brothers favorite, I think we'd both probably say Drew Carey, right? I mean, we loved Who's Line. We love him on Price is Right. For us and just our personal taste, probably Drew Carey, right?
Yeah, I think in terms of a guy who I'm tuning into the show to see, and I think basically what both those guys have in common is that they're good stand-up comics, but they're better just personalities.
Yeah.
Guys off the cuff, guys who can steer the ship, and both of them really, really have that in spades. I'd say, our sentimental favorites are Dawson and Woolery. We love the sleazy game show hosts, certainly.
The car salesman.
Yeah, but they're kind of, you love them because of what they're subverting, and you're never really going to say that the subversion is the best thing. Steve Harvey goes at the show in a straightforward manner, and he just executes it perfectly.
I don't think there's any lack of appreciation for Steve Harvey, but I'm glad we took the time to appreciate him.
I think he's so
ubiquitous.
Yes, and to a point of being corny in a way. Nobody would. I wonder if people would even say, "Oh, I love Steve Harvey." I guess people do.
I think, too,
yeah,
sure.
But
I don't know if people would cop to watching Family Feud
Right.
that often, which I don't think most people do. We don't necessarily. But if we're flipping around in a hotel room,
Yeah.
Or just there's nothing on TV, as we're making dinner and you just throw on Family Feud. It's always a good time.
Absolutely.
Always a good time. All right, one last break. Then when we come back, got a fun new game for my brother John. All right, I got a game for you, John. It's called Easiest Laugh.
Okay.
I thought of this because game show hosts always get easy laughs with their cheap banter. And it got me thinking about other people who have this privilege. I was at a concert over the weekend and thought of this as well, and I'll kind of bring up an example of this. But basically, I'm going to name you 6 examples of people in scenarios where you get easy laughs, and then I want you to kind of, as we go along, rank them, and you'll sort of rank from easiest laugh number 1 to not so easiest laugh at number 6, but they're all pretty easy laughs. I'm not going to do that viral trend where I make you blind rank. I'm not going to make you do that. So if you want to write them down and then kind of reassess, you can kind of do a ranking as I'm doing it,
Sure.
and then number them at the end, something like that. How's that sound?
Got it.
All right, easiest laugh. So the one I thought of at the concert is a musician between songs at a concert is always a very easy laugh.
Yeah.
Most musicians at concerts are not funny. It's a lot of like very weird, poetic, like, hey, thanks for coming out. It's a beautiful night. You're a beautiful crowd. And it's just like, this is kind of weird. And then, like, I was at the Greek Theater, and there's these purple lights that shine on the pine trees. And the guy said a line where he was like, yeah, I haven't been to the Greek Theater in a few years. The trees are purple now. And I got a huge laugh, huge laugh. And I was just like, God, only a musician would get a cheap laugh like this in between songs to concert. I guess you're just puncturing the sincerity of all the songs, and it's a little relief of tension. But boy, they get some easy laughs, don't they?
Yes, that though, and I think this is probably going to be a common feature. The audience is desperate for the approval of said musician.
Correct.
They want that musician to be in as good of mood as possible before playing their songs, and so they're given the cheap laugh.
You will notice all the people in these scenarios have the status over those who should be laughing for them.
I see.
All right, next scenario.
It's a pretty easy laugh.
Absolutely. Another easy laugh. Priest during a homily.
This, I'm going number 1. I would blind rank this number 1.
this
I'm
is
blind
number
ranking them
1?
anyway. I'm putting musician 4. I'm doing priest as 1. Priest is number
1. Okay.
If the audience is paying attention.
Especially on Easter, Christmas, the big days where the churchgoers, they don't go too often. It's a nice packed crowd. He's got a full room. It's like, I've only been one time the whole year. I'd better really yuck it up and throw some cash in the collection plate.
It's like you're going to die and go to the pearly gates, and St. Peter's going to be like, well, you're a real piece of garbage. We'd send you to hell, but, every year you went to Easter Mass and you laughed really loud at what the priest said, so you're in.
That's great. All right. Well, I don't know if you want to put it number 1. I'm challenging you to not blind rank these because I really want you. I got some really good ones here. I really got some good ones.
All right. It's going
to
to take a lot to knock this off the pedestal.
A friend at a loud bar where you can't really hear them, and so you just kind of laugh to let them know that you understand what they're saying. So you're at like a or you're at a loud bar, and they're like, I went to that over the weekend, and then he said, blah, 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 and you're just like, like, so they don't feel like you're a dick and not listening.
You don't want them to repeat the story. You don't want to get caught back in what'd you say, what I say. I get that. That one again is another one where you're it's for the social lubrication. It's keeping the train rolling.
Right.
I would put that one. I would even put that one, I think, below the musician.
Wow, at the
I
concert.
would put that 5.
You have that 5.
I'm having that 5.
Interesting.
So far.
All right. Okay, another easy laugh. You were a guest on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon.
Oh,
Jimmy's going to laugh at your terrible story. I was in the airport and I realized I misplaced my luggage. He's smacking the table. He's running over to the roots, laughing as hard as I can. And then I realized I found the luggage. He's gripping his stomach, rolling around on the ground. I mean, God bless Jimmy Fallon, very talented man. But that man really, talk about social lubricant, that man really makes you feel welcome there on the couch at the Tonight Show. He'll laugh at anything.
I was thinking about this. He's not a game show host. He's a permanent contestant on $100,000 pyramid
it's
or
one
something
with
like that.
Kiki Anderson. It's like Password.
Kiki Palmer, right?
Yeah, Kiki Palmer.
Password.
Yeah.
It's Password. He's the all-time contestant. Like there's all-time quarterback.
Right.
He is somebody who I feel like is going out of his way to make people feel comfortable, and like they'll open up to him.
True.
And I think there's a reason for his over laughing. I think he also is just the guy who, famously on Saturday Night Live was known for breaking.
He broke a lot.
He might just be somebody who, loves to laugh, is easy to make laugh. That one, I'm going to blind rank that 3.
Okay, blind rank that 3. So we have the priest at the homily, number 1.
Yeah.
And then that's 3. Okay, cool. I only have 2 left.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
A waiter or waitress at a restaurant. Very easy laugh when they're waiting on you and they make a little comment like, I don't know. It's like, well, I'll make sure not to spit in the food, or they make some corny little joke, and you're like, I find myself over laughing with waiters and waitresses all the time. Again, it's a social lubricant, right? It's a social lubricant.
You don't want them to spit in your food.
No,
actually,
you do not.
So you want them to like you. There's also like the inherent. There is a there's a weird power balance because it's like, I need you to bring me my food, so you have that power over me, but you are serving me.
And I'm paying you.
Yeah. So that I do have the power, you have the power. I will say, I am not a big fan of the funny waiter.
Right.
And I occasionally will give a little bit of chilliness, nothing impolite, but just like, come on, I'm the, like I give a very tepid. I'm not gonna over laugh at. I'll give a smile.
I'll over laugh.
You'll over laugh. All right. Well, perhaps for you that'd be higher. I'm putting that 6.
That's 6. Wow. All right. Well, here's the piece de resistance.
Okay.
I believe the easiest laugh known to mankind. A girl you're trying to hook up with.
Oh, boy.
I mean, can you really put a priest and during an homily above a woman you have a desperate crush on and are desperately trying to hook up with? I mean, you're going to laugh at absolutely anything this woman says, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, you will. But, yeah, it's true. It's.
Are you rethinking your number 1? I'll let you change it. What do you have a slot for? 2?
See, that's what I think. Though there's conditions, and it's like that. This is a man. A man would do this. I suppose it goes the other way. If there's a woman who's very interested in a man,
for sure,
they're definitely gonna overlap at it.
For sure.
But these are very sort of. I feel like there's an ulterior motive. Although I guess there is a little bit of an ulterior motive.
Any of these. Yeah, they're
true.
social lubricant.
Yeah.
You want to look friendly. You don't want them to repeat their story. There's all these scenarios. But again, with all these scenarios, other than kind of the friend at the bar, all of them have this status over the laugher, right? These people getting the easy laughs, they have the status over the laugher.
Yeah. I'm going to put it, I'm still going to put it, number 2.
Okay, so let's hear the final ranking. Easiest laugh from 1 to 6. This is going from easiest to less easy. What is the easiest laugh at number 1?
The easiest laugh is the priest.
At the homily.
I will say typically because often the priest jokes are not that good. Although occasionally being a lifelong attender of masses, there are occasionally some funny priests.
Absolutely.
You get some good ones mixed in.
Number 2 is the woman you have a crush on.
Woman or man that the person has a respective crush on, unless you are that woman that I am currently interested in. It's all genuine for you, baby. It's all genuine.
That's very, very nice of you.
Number 3 is Fallon. You're a guest.
You're a guest on
Fallon's.
Fallon. You're going to get some easy laughs. Zoe Kravitz. You're going to go on Fallon.
Yeah.
You're going to get the laughs. Yeah.
Number 4 is the musician in between numbers at the concert.
Yeah.
You're laughing only to put them in a good mood, and also to be like, ha 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 ha. Next one.
Next song, please. You're not a comic. please, the music, please.
Although I will say one thing I saw that a musician did that was funny was I saw a show recently. The lead singer was of Pulp, a band I had not heard of, but I got a free
Pulp,
ticket
P-U-L-P?
P-U-L-P.
Oh, interesting.
And he was like kind of a Brit pop guy, and he's like, we've been doing something on the tour. I've had a grape, and I've been trying to catch the grape in my mouth, and every time I haven't caught the grape in my mouth. And I was like, I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe. He tosses it up, caught it in his mouth. Biggest pop I've ever heard.
Beautiful.
So a small, that's what Benson Boone has hijacked. Some little carnival trick. If you are a musician doing the backflip, that gets the big pop.
Don't be a comic. Be a carnival act, right? Do some sort of easy act, right?
That would be my advice to any musician. Don't worry about laughs. Worry about doing something mildly impressive that people can overreact.
Don't
to.
worry about laughs. Just catch grapes.
Yeah,
there
catch
you
grapes.
go.
I would recommend anybody. I would watch somebody catch. It was great.
Well,
it was thrilling.
No, you could
the
choke.
drummer
You gotta
gave,
be careful. You can choke.
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
fair enough. The drummer gave a little drum roll. It was
Of
nice.
course, yeah. That's good. That's
All right,
good.
number 5. I had a friend at a bar who is telling you a story that you don't want them to repeat, and the music is too loud, so you couldn't really hear it. So you just laugh to move it along.
That one was really making me laugh. I remember doing that at college a lot. You'd be out late night, hanging out, and be like, yeah. So I told him blah blah blah, and then he said blah 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 blah, and you're just like, baby, yeah.
Especially too, it's like if you have, it's usually with somebody who you have like a good enough relationship with, but you only see them there. You just want the interaction to go well.
I've literally been at a bar, someone has done the blah, 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 and I literally die laughing, fake wiping tears, slap them on the back and say, I freaking love you.
Yeah.
Like, I have for sure done that in my life.
That's all you want. Like, that's all.
Who cares
That's
if
all
I
we're
heard
telling
it?
each other stories for.
Who cares
is to get
if
that
I
reaction.
heard it? I love you. Who
Yeah,
cares?
that's
Right. Who cares?
That's it.
Last one, number 6.
Was the waiter at the restaurant, who I will say, yes, I occasionally have, over laughed at a waiter, but it's not my preference that they're trying out their tight 5 on me while I'm waiting for my chicken a la king.
To anyone, you're always going out ordering fricassee and chicken a la king. Any waiter who's going to wait on you, all business. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
Kind of at the Chinese restaurant, there's not too much joking familiarity. It's more of a cultural thing where it's just like they serve, they're in, they're out. There's none of that Americanized banter and faux friendliness.
Yes.
That's sort of what you enjoy.
I don't mind having like a legit conversation with the waiter, like especially about the food, or if there's a lull, or occasionally I go out to eat on my own, and I don't mind like having a little chat with them in that case. But I don't want their canned lines. I don't want the I guess you hated it, like when I finished the meal outrageously. Although that one does get a bad rap, that joke. I'm not furious at it. Like some people just have this like absolute revulsion for it. It's like I don't mind if the waiter looks at me. It's like, you're kind of a pig. Like that'll get a laugh from me.
I don't mind that line. The other hack line, again, people have this ire toward that I always find very funny, is on New Year's Day when you wake up and you're like, I haven't brushed my teeth all year. Or I haven't had breakfast all year. I haven't showered all year. I don't mind that. There is literally like a 12-hour window in which you can do those jokes. Can't we just allow the jokes for 12 hours and then just give it a rest?
Right.
Like,
well,
who cares?
You are a teller of those jokes.
It's a great one.
You
That's
do
a great
love
one.
the jokes.
You could do it a week later. I haven't driven my car all year. There's how far can you press it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, please subscribe, comment, leave a rating, send questions, comments, or big idea suggestions to our business email, flynnbrospod@gmail.com. Thank you to our producer, Will Slade, and we'll see you next time on the Flynn Brothers Podcast. Take care, buddy.
No, buddy. You take care.